let's look at a quadratic equation that we can't solve by undoing, at least at this point. So this is going to be example 3. And here is the quadratic equation. Negative 3x squared minus 6x plus 45 equals 0. Now you can see right away how this looks different than the ones we did in examples 1 and 2 because we have x located in 2 places. We have an x being squared and then we have an x here that we would say is kind of more linear because it's just x to the first power. We can't combine these together because they're not like terms because the x is being squared here and here the x is not being squared. Now, tomorrow we'll talk about a process called completing the square where we can actually work through a process where we will no longer have the x in 2 places. But another strategy that we already know that we can try and use when we have an equation that's a quadratic equation that's written in this way is to use factoring. So let's see if we can factor this quadratic equation. The first thing I notice here is that all of our values, all of our terms here are divisible by -3. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out a -3 from each term. So that leaves me with x squared plus 2x. And then, yeah, positive 45, if we divide out by -3, we get minus 15 equals 0. Now I can take a look at this quadratic trinomial that remains and think about how to factor that further. So here's where we start to think about numbers that would multiply to -15 that would add up to 2, and that can help us do the factoring. So we'll keep the -3 in front. We'll open up 2 sets of parentheses. We'll lead both of those parentheses with an x. And then we think about what multiplies to -15 that adds up to positive 2. And it looks like positive 5 and a -3 will accomplish that for us. And I always double check my factoring by expanding. So x squared minus 3x plus 5x would give us that positive 2x. And then 5 times -3 is -15. So I feel pretty good about my factoring. And now we can use something called the zero product property. Over here on the left side, we have a product of kind of 3 items. We've got -3 times x plus 5 times x minus 3. And if we have a product, something times something times something, equal to 0, what we know is that one of those 3 pieces of the product would have to be equal to 0 in order to get 0 as an answer when we multiply it out. So if we take a look, there's no way that this -3 can be made into a 0. It's just a constant. But if we look here, x plus 5, we can see that if x is equal to -5, then a -5 plus a 5 would give us 0, and that would zero out the entire left side of the equation. Similarly, for our second factor, x equal to positive 3 will zero out this factor. 3 minus 3 is 0, which then zeroes out the whole side and makes our equation true. So our 2 solutions here are x equals -5 and x equals 3. We could always substitute these values back up into the original equation to verify that they are correct.